I love doing experiments that make people stop and stare, and today we went microscopic with one of nature's greatest engineers, ants. We set up 10 totally different foods and watched how thousands of tiny workers reacted, fought, feasted, coordinated like a living machine. This video is all about texture teamwork, the tiny epic dramas that unfold right under our feet. You're going to see sparkle, stickiness, crunch, pure chaos, all happening at ant scale. I wanted to see which foods would attract the biggest crowds, which would be quickly dismantled, which would create the most insane visual moments. So, we micromanaged the micro world. The sugar crystals glittered like a miniature glacier under the lights. Each granule flashed and caught the camera. The whole pile looked like a tiny diamond field. Ants approached in waves, their antennae trembling as they scouted each shiny peak. They flowed over the crystals like water over rocks, streams, tributaries. Their feet clung, released, clung again in a steady rhythmic motion. You can almost sense the tiny grains shifting as they march. Up close, the crystals look like cliffs, caverns to these little explorers. The visual rhythm of ants moving across sparkle is strangely calming. It mesmerizes the eye. The first contact is tentative, a few scouts probing with brief touches. Then, like a signal, the ranks swell. The pile becomes a bustling avenue. Mandibles pluck at individual crystals. They carry them back with delicate precision. Sometimes they form tight clusters, like tiny harvesters compressing cargo. The contrast of hard crystal and soft insect bodies is dramatic. Movement becomes pattern, wave, pause, ripple, repeat. The granular texture of sugar makes a percussion of tiny clicks as mandibles lift. It's a choreography of appetite and geometry. The cookie crumb looked enormous compared to the ants, like a boulder strewn with pits and crevices. The porous surface created instant footholds and hiding spots for the tiny workers. Scouts arrived and began the careful business of coordinated chip removal. The ants worked in groups, nibbling at edges and tugging fragments away with synchronized effort. Every crunch and jerky tear made a chorus of satisfying sounds in macro slow motion. The crumb's texture allowed ants to anchor and leverage their bodies for extra pulling power. Watching them dismantle it felt like seeing a demolition crew at work, methodical and efficient. I emphasized the crunchy sound design to make every chip removal feel tactile. When a piece broke off, the camera caught the micro-flying dust and the ant bands converging for the prize. There were moments of tug-of-war, where two ant teams pulled opposite sides until a satisfying snap released a new cargo. The porous cookie surface also trapped crumbs that became mini caches of food. Ants exploited those nooks, digging and scraping with surprising delicacy. Their coordinated chip removal is a testament to their communication and tenacity. It's teamwork amplified by texture. The slow, coordinated movement was hypnotic, mandibles opening and closing like tiny pliers. Little clouds of fine dust lifted with each pull, creating a golden haze in the macro light. Sometimes a single ant would pry, then rally reinforcements to haul off a heavier chunk. Tiny relay lines formed to move goods back to the nest, and the crumb gradually deflated as the community fed. Eaten edges, emptied pores, established roots. It's a crunchy symphony of tiny workers doing big work. Chapter 3. The watermelon slice came in saturated with color. Bright pink flesh rimmed by green rind dotted with glossy juice beads. Ants were immediately attracted to the moisture, swarming to the sweet, exposed flesh. They carved glossy paths into the surface, leaving tiny furrows that glistened under macro lights. Each bead of juice reflected their frantic activity, like planets in a wet landscape. The sound here is wet and soft, a contrast to the cookie's crunch and the sugar's clink. Ants sometimes bathed in the juice, their bodies becoming shiny and slick as they worked. Matter soaked with liquid behaves differently at ant scale. Traction is altered, scents spread, and the surface becomes both slippery and inviting. Ants carved channels, creating miniature rivers that carried droplets toward their lines. You can clearly see the way moisture beads and then rolls, pulled by movement and gravity into streams. The bright color makes every motion pop. Each ant is a dark speck moving across a neon field. It's visually electric and biologically fascinating. They exploited the softness of the flesh to extract juicy nutrients with minimal resistance. Mandibles sank into the pulp and then lifted, creating tiny chunks and ribbons of flesh. Ants often worked in pairs, one loosening material while another hauled. The sheen on their bodies after a few minutes told the story of immersion. Tiny droplets beaded and rolled off them. Slow-motion captures showed droplets stretching and snapping, sometimes leaving filaments of juice that tethered ants to the slice for a beat. The ants' movement takes on a different tempo in wet conditions. It's more deliberate, more fluid. Their paths became glossy scars on the watermelon surface, intricate and transient. This chapter is all about moisture, sheen, and the fluid choreography of feeding in a wet environment. It's one of those segments where the sensory overload is immediate. Bright color, sticky sheen, and the hypnotic rhythm of tiny bodies moving in sync. Chapter 4. The pizza crust edge arrived with visual cues of chewiness and grease, ridges, charred spots, and oily sheen. Ants reacted instantly to the scent, converging on the crust like they smelled a banquet. The chewy texture required sustained pulling and steady leverage. You see ants anchoring and tugging in muscular, rhythmic motions. Grease created reflective patches that glinted in macro, making their movements look slick and cinematic. Their coordinated hauling across the crust felt like a steady drumbeat. Pull, reposition, haul, repeat. At close range, the crust fibers become ropes for ants to latch onto. They wrap legs and mandibles around strands and coordinate tugs. The grease changes traction, sometimes making mandibles slip and forcing cooperation for heavier loads. Watching them tug and haul is watching a tiny construction site. Teams assemble, apply force, and collectively overcome the crust's resilience. The crust edge doesn't crumble easily, so endurance and persistence are on full display. You can see ants communicating with brief touches to synchronize their efforts. In slow motion, you notice how grease stretches between ant mandibles and the crust, creating little filaments that break with audible twangs. Teams form hauling chains, passing morsels down the line like a living conveyor belt. Each tug is an act of problem-solving. Find a grip, recruit reinforcements, adjust angle, and pull. Some ants act as anchors, while others do the heavy lifting, showing specialization within the swarm. The crust's combination of firmness and oil makes every success feel earned. Watching a chunk finally surrender and slide down a trail is a cinematic payoff. Overall, the pizza crust edge delivered slow, powerful drama, chewy resistance paired with greasy shine and methodical hauling. This felt like watching a tiny siege, patient, organized, and ultimately victorious. Chapter 5. The glazed donut looked like a polished planet, mirror-like shine, sugary gloss reflecting everything. That glaze is both attractive and treacherous, beautiful, sticky, slippery. Ants navigated the slick surface with cautious steps, sometimes stumbled, then recovered rapidly. Slow motion, sticky pulls as ants tried to extract sweet resin. Droplets sagged and fell, an artful frame about stickiness and motion. Smooth curvature funneled ants to the center, concentrating traffic. Mirror glaze reflections of tiny bodies inching across a candy-smooth plane. Mandibles on the glaze, sticky tethers elongated then snapped in satisfying slow-mo arcs. Sticky pulls changed their gait. Adapt, adjust, find footholds, nudging and assisting when grip failed. Chunk of glaze peeled and stretched into a glassy filament then gave way. Sugar ropes held tiny workers for a beat, then snapped like taffy. Ants used the glaze like a conveyor, worked a spot until a bead loosened, then rushed the prize. Extraction from smooth surface, persistence and adaptation. Curvature produced intriguing lines of traffic funneling inward. Contrast, sticky glaze versus cakier interior, varied tactics. Once they breached the glaze, crumb extraction sped up. Initial phase, getting past the sleek barrier, pure theater. Ants used leverage, formed anchors, created cooperative winches. Tiny coordinated bodies on a mirror-like surface. Oddly elegant. Aesthetic plus strategy. Visually striking footage. In conclusion, mirror-like reflections, elongating tethers, triumphant extractions. Less noisy than the cookie, less wet than the watermelon, but the visual payoff is huge. Surface physics at insect scale, teamwork and persistence outmaneuvered the slickest barrier. Chapter 6. The honey droplet was the ultimate test of viscosity. Thick, amber, slow to move. Ants arrived, immediately interacted with the droplet like it was a small planet of syrup. Their bodies became coated in honey, bathed, smeared, dragged it in deliberate motions. The slow stretch created hypnotic visuals. Filaments elongated and retracted between mandibles and legs. Watching ants drag honey is like a living slow-motion ballet performed in amber. The pacing here is meditative and almost trance-inducing. We emphasize deliberate hypnotic phrasing because honey forces time to expand at macro scale. Every pull is slow, every filament holds and stretches, making tiny moments feel epic. Ants would wedge their mandibles then slowly withdraw, elongating honey into elastic ropes that shimmered under the light. Some ants lingered in the droplet, bathing and soaking their cargo with intricate grooming-like motions. The viscosity makes coordination different, helping increases traction but also risks tangling. I captured the bathing behavior closely. Ants dipped, rolled, hurried back to relay lines, flipping honey-coated bodies to pass the load. The dragging motions are deliberate, with ants forming temporary lines to move the viscous mass. When a filament finally snapped, it released a tiny, satisfying pop and sent glossy beads rolling. Slow motion reveals how honey reshapes the rules of movement. No quick grabs, just patient, muscular extraction. The amber color and translucent quality made each filament look like a glass ribbon, connecting ants to the droplet. Those ribbons refracted light and added a jewel-like aesthetic to their efforts. Watching them become glossy and sticky, then coordinating to move that stickiness, is a unique display of insect problem-solving. Every tug requires energy, and you can almost feel the strain as ants pull against the viscous resistance. Ultimately, the honey test was entrancing. Viscous stretches, bathing ants, slow, purposeful motion. Oddly poetic. Nature slowed down until you can appreciate every deliberate move. Stick around because some of the reactions were totally unexpected, and the patterns the ants made are almost hypnotic. We're zooming in, slowing down, narrating every tiny jaw snap, narrating every droplet stretch. This is weird, oddly satisfying, scientifically fascinating, and I promise you'll never look at a cookie crumb the same way again. The shine attracted scouts. The scouts attracted the crowd. A sprinkle became a procession. Watching it evolve felt like a city forming from glitter. The real spectacle was the living river of ants rearranging the landscape with tiny, precise movements.